Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to be with you today. I hope your Thanksgiving holiday was fun and yummy. Mine was. To all you newcomers and seasoned firefighters alike, welcome to Fire Drill Fridays, where we are building community, learning about the climate crisis, and taking action to address it. Be sure to check out firedrillfridays.com/takeaction to get involved. And please drop your name and wherever you're joining from in the comments, because I love hearing from you. It really brightens my day. Today, we're talking about how courtrooms are becoming a critical frontier in the fight for climate justice and a livable planet. I am honored to have California's Attorney General Rob Bonta joining us to discuss a landmark climate lawsuit and what it means to our collective future. But before we get into that, let's celebrate some good news. Da, 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 da. First off, we had some very heartening results from last month's elections. You've probably heard about the big victories for reproductive health. Ohio voted to enshrine abortion rights in their state constitution. Virginia Democrats clinched control of the state House and Senate, staving off the Republican governor's attempts to severely restrict abortion rights. Thank goodness. While you might not know, this fight was critical for our climate, too. Virginia Democrats are now positioned to block the governor's efforts to dismantle the state's climate policies. There were also countless climate champions elected in down ballot races across the country, city councils, county executives, mayors, and supervisors. This is why it's so important to vote down ballot, by the way. This is where the rubber meets the road with a lot of climate work in this country. So cheers to all that. As we head into 2024, let's build on this momentum to make sure climate wins up and down the ballot. Next, I have an exciting little action spotlight for you. This week, in advance of the United Nations climate negotiations, Greenpeace USA became the first activist organization to transform the Hollywood sign with powerful projection images. Greenpeace's message to Governor Gavin Newsom and other world leaders was clear. We need climate leadership, corporate accountability, and a livable future for all. Over the next 2 weeks, global leaders have a chance to rewrite the script and put an end to the fossil fuel frenzy that is driving the climate crisis. With their bold action, we can set ourselves free from oil and gas and make polluters pay for the damage they're causing to our planet. Check out Greenpeace USA's social media channels to watch the video and share to let world leaders know it's time to act. Okay, now let's get into our topic, climate change in the courts. Struggle for a safe, livable planet is everywhere, from the streets and the hall to the halls of Congress, the ballot box, frontline neighborhoods, and increasingly courtrooms. As the climate crisis worsens, lawsuits seeking justice are multiplying and stakes are rising. Young people are taking their future into their own hands, suing governments over inaction on climate and standing up for their right to breathe clean air, drink safe water, and thrive, not just survive, on a livable planet. This past summer, a group of 18 young Montanans, ranging from ages 5 to 22, won a historic case that marked the first time that a U.S. court has declared a government's constitutional duty to protect people from climate change. And it's not just young folks. Communities harmed by oil expansion and pollution are also filing suits, like indigenous and frontline communities in New Mexico, arguing that out-of-control development in their backyards violates their state's constitutional duty to control pollution. Indigenous and conservation groups have gone to court to stop the Willow Project, a massive methane gas project in the Arctic. The state of California has also taken a bold step, which we'll talk about in depth today, joining a growing number of lawsuits suing oil companies for climate changes. This case accused the 5 biggest oil companies of decades of lies and deceit while they continued to knowingly profit from climate destruction. Many experts are calling this the most significant case of its kind. These lawsuits are not just legal maneuvers, they are at the crux of a climate reckoning. They're a wake-up call that we can't stand by while corporations who clearly only care about their profits dictate the future of our planet. History shows us how critical legal action is for progress. Take, for instance, the cases against tobacco companies back in the 90s. Remember that? For decades, big tobacco knowingly profited from harmful products while waging a deceptive cover-up campaign. Sound familiar? Just one second now, because I have somehow gotten off track here. This campaign against the tobacco companies marked a turning point in public perception of tobacco companies and contributed to a nationwide decline in smoking. Legal victories in the progressive movement are rarely isolated incidents. They're catalysts and culminations of much broader societal transformation. The groundbreaking Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1954 didn't just strike down segregated public schools. It gave hope to millions and marked a turning point in the civil rights movement. The Supreme Court's watershed decision legalizing same-sex marriage in 2015 followed a decades-long fight that not only succeeded in granting equal rights to countless couples, but galvanized a monumental shift in public opinion towards greater acceptance and understanding. Climate change can't be stopped in the courts alone, but it is a battlefront that may be critical to our movement's success. The decisions made in the coming years could have profound implications for the future of our planet and for generations to come. Luckily, today's guest can help us make sense of these high-stake courtroom battles and tell us how we can not only rally and support, but leverage these cases to change the conversation, to shift social norms and supercharge our efforts across every lever of influence to generate deep and lasting change. Attorney General Rob Bonta has dedicated his career to the pursuit of justice and recently filed one of the most important climate cases of our time. His passion for fairness was instilled in him from an early age by his parents, who served on the front lines of some of America's most important social justice movements. In 2021, he was sworn in as the 34th Attorney General of the state of California, the first person of Filipino descent and the second Asian American to occupy this esteemed position. As the people's attorney, which is what attorneys general really are, he sees seeking accountability from those who abuse their power and harm others as one of the most important functions of his job. Welcome, Attorney General Bonta. I am so honored to have you with us as a guest.
Oh, Attorney General, you're on mute.
Hello, Attorney General Bonta.
Sorry. Hi. Honored to be here. Thanks for having me, Jane. I'm thrilled to be with you today.
I'm so glad you're here. Thanks. First, can you tell us about California's climate case and why it's so significant at this moment?
Absolutely. We are the biggest geographic entity, the biggest economy yet to sue with the most sweeping set of claims. Some of the largest fossil fuel companies in the world. And we believe that that is part of California's legacy, part of our identity, and that it's a game changer and a watershed moment in the ongoing effort to address the damages of climate change deception. Specifically on September 15th, 2023, just earlier this year, our office filed this lawsuit. It sues the five major oil and gas companies, ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and BP, as well as the industry association, the American Petroleum Institute. And we are seeking, in short, to hold these companies responsible for their deception and the devastation incurred by their greedy actions. They knew about climate change decades ago, as early as the 50s, 60s, 70s, and they lied about it because it was a problem for their bottom line in their endless pursuit of profits and their unquenchable greed. That they lied and went through all sorts of steps and actions to question and undermine and dilute the climate science, which internally they knew was sending us towards the edge as a planet in terms of climate change, but externally they would cast doubt and undermine that science. And our lawsuit explains how their campaign of deception has included unlawful acts like false advertising, misleading environmental marketing, how it's resulted in harms to public health and natural resources. And we're super excited and grateful to have the support of Governor Newsom, his office, as we take on this critical legal battle against big oil. We announced the lawsuit jointly, Governor Newsom and I, in New York during Climate Week. And these companies, normally competitors, they put their differences aside to collaborate on campaigns to strategically disseminate falsehoods, to seeking to discredit scientists and cast doubt among consumers. And it was strategic. It was planned deceit. And they've spent millions. They had budgets to fund radio, TV, online, social media, outdoor ad campaigns just in California. They rolled out op-eds, advertorials, advertisements and editorials, publications masquerading as legitimate science. And, here's what one study found, that 80% of Exxon's internal documents acknowledge the realities of climate change, but 81% of their advertorials, their external documents, express doubt about climate science. So they knew the truth, but they lied about it to the public. One memo between a coalition of top industry leaders directly called for the companies to stall a shift away from fossil fuels by emphasizing uncertainties in climate science, calling for more research and promoting policies that benefited them. So they knew the truth for decades. They knew and they predicted with terrifying accuracy where we would be today with global warming, climate change, extreme weather, and they lied about it. They shouldn't lie to the people of California. They shouldn't lie to the people of this country and the world. And this suit seeks to hold them accountable for those lies, for that climate change deception.
So important. Yeah, I think one of their CEOs said, if we can cause doubt, we win.
Mm-hmm. That's the strategy.
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, a core argument in the lawsuit is that these oil and gas companies, they knew about climate change, profited from it, and actively misled the public. In your investigation, what are some of the most shocking and egregious examples of the deception that you discovered?
There's a certain section, Jane, of the complaint where it's a few pages, and it lists what the fossil fuel companies knew back in the 60s and 70s, and it will make your blood boil to know now what they knew then and what they did having known that they decided to lie, that they decided to bury the truth and hide the truth and dilute the truth and instead push out lies. Why? Just so that they could greedily profit more. Literally the pursuit of money. And we have proof in black and white as set forth in our complaint, internal memos, research, predictions, testimony, that these fossil fuel companies saw climate change coming, extreme weather coming as early as the 1960s. For example, there's one report from 1968 where the American Petroleum Institute and its members, they received this report from the Stanford Research Institute. And that report stated, quote, significant temperature changes are almost certain to occur by the year 2000. And there seems to be no doubt that the potential damage to our environment could be severe. So that's in 1968. 10 years later, in 1978, an internal Exxon memo stated that, quote, present thinking holds that man has a time window of 5 to 10 years before the need for hard decisions regarding changes in energy strategies might become critical, that the window is closing, that we have to act before it's too late. They knew that in 1978. Internal documents prove these companies knew their products would cause climate change and damage the planet. And they knew exactly where we'd be today. They purposely chose to publicly deny it for the sake of achieving record profits. It's that simple. So they were well aware of this inevitability since the 60s. They chose to hide the truth, all the while pumping out and promoting products they knew would hurt the public health and destroy our environment.
It's unconscionable. How can you explain the impacts and the scope of the damage to Californians that this deception caused?
We're living it. Our own eyes, our lived experiences tell us what that damage is, what that pain is. As big oil's misleading marketing has continued, California taxpayers have been left suffering and footing the bill and carrying the burden of recovery from the devastating impacts of climate change. These fossil fuel companies put their dangerous, damaging products into the world and said, the rest of you should pay for it while we rake in the profits. And year after year, the increasingly extreme weather events caused by climate change, they can give you whiplash. This year alone, California has had extreme drought and historic flooding. We've had sprawling wildfires and torrential storms. We've had an unusually cold spring and a record hot summer. Extremes both ways, giving you whiplash back and forth. Homes have been burned to the ground or swept away. Farms that produce the food our state, our nation relies on have been struggling to survive. Our workers, just trying to do their jobs, have been pushed to the limits in unbearable heat. Highways and railways have been left in perilous conditions as the ground beneath them crumbles. And while oil and gas giants have pocketed massive profits, Californians have been forced to spend billions to weather the devastating repercussions of climate change, costs that will keep piling up if we don't stand up to big oil. Big oil should not be able to pass on those costs to everyday people, to taxpayers. They should pay for the damage that they caused.
You're here. As a cancer survivor, one of the things that just flattens me is that so many people get cancer because of the air pollution due to fossil fuels. And I just read today that over 60,000 people died in Europe this year because of heat. It's truly mind-boggling. The magnitude of the damage, and it's getting worse, right? Year after year. Given all of that, what are the specific things you're asking the court to order?
We have a series of claims that we believe are very robust and strong that we set forth in our complaint, starting with a public nuisance complaint at the top, a specific attorney general only action that we can bring to address damage to natural resources. There's a set of deception-related claims, false advertising, misleading marketing, fraudulent business practices, and then two products liability, failures to warn claims. And together, the main remedy that we seek is twofold. One, stop lying. Stop lying about what you know is true, and stop lying about climate change. The science that you've been aware of in these fossil fuel companies internally for decades. They need to stop lying to the people of California and the people of this country and the world that we do not deserve to be lied to. We deserve the truth. Secondly, a public nuisance claim leads as a remedy to an abatement fund, which is a fund that the fossil fuel companies will pay into to provide resilience, mitigation, other action to address climate change, and that was caused by their lies. And there's quite a few different things that could be that the abatement funding could be used for. Things like opening, maintaining, and running cooling centers to address extreme heat. Things like augmenting water storage and distribution systems to address extreme drought. Things like augmented forest management to address extreme wildfire. Opening, to your important point about public health, opening and maintaining and running clean air centers so people can breathe clean air, flood mitigation for storms, potential seawalls for sea rise. So that's what the abatement fund, that's the potential it has to address the damages of climate change created by these fossil fuel companies. But we're looking for them to pay for the damage they created, and we're looking for them to stop lying.
Hear, hear. How are oil and gas companies fighting back against this lawsuit?
They're trying to reframe this very straightforward litigation in court based on sound and strong legal claims as a policy effort. They're trying to say that our lawsuit is trying to set climate policy when it is doing no such thing. And they are arguing that climate policy is for Congress to debate and decide. That is their pivot that they are unsuccessfully trying to make. There certainly is a role for policymakers, and we invite everyone to stay in your lane and play your role to address climate change. Our role here is through the court system and litigation. It has nothing to do with climate policy. Policymakers will address climate policy, but they are trying to float this red herring that this case is about climate policy when it's really about straightforward litigation. And they're also fighting back by delaying, trying to buy time to eke out more profits from their fossil fuel investments before they reach judgment day. We want to get to the substance and to a final judgment and outcome in our case as soon as possible. But there are different tactics that they're using, that they've used in the past to delay, that we expect they will use here to delay. So they are reframing this issue as something that it is not, as one of their attempts to fight back, and they are also delaying as much as possible as another attempt to fight back.
Thank you for that explanation. It seems like there's been a shift in the oil and gas company strategy in recent years, away from outright denial and towards more greenwashing. Can you explain to the audience what greenwashing is and talk about how you see big oil strategy changing?
Yeah, they have a lot of approaches in their portfolio from straight denial to diluting and undermining the science to greenwashing, which is trying to deceive the public into perceiving their products as environmentally beneficial when they're not, and to distract consumers from what they don't want you to see. So pretending that their fossil fuel products are actually good for the environment or are not causing climate change. So that's what greenwashing is, and that is something we certainly are seeing more of from big oil and the fossil fuel companies that we are suing. They are claiming that their products are clean or low carbon or have some kind of environmental benefit. They portray themselves as, quote, sustainable energy companies, taking steps to combat climate change. And in our own lawsuit, we underscore that in several advertisements in the Washington Post, the American Petroleum Institute has misleadingly touted natural gas, a fossil fuel, as, quote, part of the solution to climate change, and says the, quote, low and no carbon future starts with natural gas, again, a fossil fuel. Shell claims that it aims to become a net zero emissions energy business by 2050, and that it's tackling climate change, is their quote. However, Shell's own CEO told the BBC this year that cutting oil and gas production would be dangerous and irresponsible. So these are empty claims. Greenwashing. Exxon has heavily promoted its investment in developing algae, including research done in California, for use as a biofuel to reduce emissions and combat climate change. Exxon's investment in potential renewable fuels such as biofuels has been minuscule compared to its overall profits and to its investments in developing and expanding its fossil fuels portfolio and business. And late last year, Exxon quietly abandoned its investments in developing algae as a biofuel altogether. And then finally, a final example, Chevron claims that it is committed to addressing climate change. It touts its intentions to invest billions of dollars in carbon reduction projects from 2010 to 2018. However, Chevron's investments in low carbon energy sources were only 0.2%, less than 1% of Chevron's capital, compared to spending 99.8% in continuing its fossil fuel exploration and development. Then Chevron sold its only renewable energy holding in 2018. So more lies, more spin, more attempts to make the people, the public, believe they are something they are not. So they have been engaged in greenwashing, and it's just more lies.
It's not directly connected to the lawsuit, to the suit that you're taking on, but another thing, every time we try to do anything, they say, if you do that, it will cause gas prices to go up. they use that as a very effective tactic because working class people care a lot about gas. So it's I don't know if the audience knows this, but the oil companies in California are trying to overturn the governor's setback rule that protects frontline communities from new oil wells in their communities. And now the oil companies are trying to overturn it. There's going to be a referendum on the ballot next year to overturn the setback bill. It's just egregious. For everyone tuning in, for the audience, I want you to say, Attorney General Bonta, how we can support in amplifying the story and importance of this case against the oil and gas companies. How can we leverage this moment to maximize impact?
Well, thank you for asking, and thank you for your points about the setbacks, as well as gas prices. The oil companies use fear, and they will fight on any attempts to reel them in. And so we need to continue to be vigilant and firm in our efforts. And one of the most important things about this case is that it's a game changer. It is unprecedented. And the main thing about it is we need help getting the word out, which is why I'm so grateful for the opportunity to join you today, Jane, and to talk about it and to lift it up so others are aware of this game-changing litigation. We're hoping that awareness of this case and other jurisdictions' cases will increase public understanding that combustion of fossil fuels is driving climate change, and in particular broaden public awareness of big oil's deception, those lies, those many examples of them knowing the truth internally but lying externally about climate change. And that's especially the case for the defendants' ongoing greenwashing, to help the public understand that these companies are not truly part of the climate solution, that these are more lies. It's part of the same playbook to lie to the public, to make them think something besides the truth in order for these fossil fuel companies to generate more profits. In addition, my office will continue to share with the public relevant updates about our lawsuit. And if you're interested, you can follow me at AG Rob Bonta on Instagram, Facebook, and X, formerly Twitter, to see the latest updates in our case. But we're excited about this case. We're grateful for the opportunity to talk about it today. And we think that it's a game changer.
And we should all talk about it as much as possible.
Yes.
Pass on the information that you've given us today. Thank you so much, Attorney General Bonta. I think we have time for some audience questions. Can you stay?
Absolutely. Honored to. Let's do it.
Maddie, what have you got from audience questions?
Yeah, we have a lot rolling in. So the first one is from Tina on Facebook. And Tina says, this climate lawsuit is really exciting. Are there any other big cases, especially related to the environment, that you are a part of?
Thank you. Let me first also honor and recognize the other states and local jurisdictions, including San Francisco and Oakland, who are involved in suing big oil for public nuisance and climate change deception in some of the cases. We believe that it's all hands on deck. Everyone has an opportunity to participate and be part of the solution to hold fossil fuel companies accountable for their climate change deception. So I want to recognize that there are other entities that have also brought lawsuits. We are the biggest geographic entity, the biggest economy, and we have the most broad sweeping set of claims. And we invite others to join us in our effort. To the question about other lawsuits and actions, we are involved in some other major actions. We have a major global plastics pollution crisis investigation into the petrochemical and fossil fuel industry for driving the myth of recycling and for creating our plastics pollution crisis worldwide. We have an investigation into ExxonMobil right now in that regard. We also have some major PFAS investigations and lawsuits addressing the forever chemicals that have harmed the health of Californians and beyond, and to hold those companies accountable. Again, those companies following the same playbook of knowing the damage to the people of their product and then sitting on it, squashing it, lying about it because it hurt their bottom line for profits. We keep seeing that in the corporate world, and Californians are the ones who are being harmed, and we're not going to allow for that. So we're standing up and fighting back, bringing lawsuits and investigations on plastics, on PFAS, on fossil fuel, companies for their many decades of damage.
Wonderful, thank you. And the next question, very related, is from Dave on YouTube. Dave says, Attorney General, I'm a young person from California. I've been really inspired by kids who are turning to the courts to protect their rights in the face of climate change, like Juliana versus United States, or the kids in Montana who won recently. What is your opinion on these cases?
I think they're inspiring. I think that they capture the powerful voice of young people of your generation who have said, we want a planet for our children and our grandchildren, for us. And adults, you haven't done enough. And you need to fight harder and be more aggressive and be more urgent. And I hear you. And I think the more hands on deck, the more folks who join this fight, including our young people who bring lawsuits, the better off we will be as a planet, as a community, as a state. You know, my own daughter, who's now 24, when she was in high school, she said to me, Dad, she said it in this way that I always will remember. She said, Dad, is this weird? My friends and I are talking. And I love our family, Dad. I love you and Mom and my brother and my sister. I want a family of my own, but right now I'm not planning to have kids because I don't think it's responsible to bring a new life onto a dying planet. And that was a gut punch for me, and pushed me to do more and fight harder and be more aggressive as we address climate change, because I think she's not alone. And I love seeing our young people lean into and own their power. And you have a voice, you have power, you can create change. And your lawsuit is one way you can do it. Your climate strikes, walking out of schools to bring attention to our climate crisis, thumbs up and completely supportive of that. So proud and grateful for your leadership and your generation. I am going to try to help push my generation to do more.
Thank you for that. The next question is from Kennedy on Facebook, and Kennedy says, or asks, if this lawsuit prevails, will the measures that big oil is forced to take in order to mitigate their damages affect the referendum that they got on the ballot in 2024?
Those should be separate lanes, separately moving legal actions. So in our lawsuit that we talked about today is not likely to be resolved by 2024's election, just a year out. So the referendum will have its democratic process. The people will vote on it, and meanwhile, our lawsuit will continue, and hopefully, be successful as we believe it will. And then that abatement fund can help address the many different types, the full range of damages that our fossil fuel companies have created due to their climate change deception.
Thank you. And the next question is from Lincoln on Twitter. What is the hardest part of moving climate cases forward? Are there aspects of the law that create obstacles to bringing cases forward?
There have been, and thank you for that question. It's a little bit of a legal technical component, but there have been lawsuits that have been in the court system for years seeking to hold fossil fuel companies accountable for climate change deception and for public nuisance. And they have been caught in a procedural loop and never getting to the substance. The issue has been, should these cases be heard in state court or federal court? And it's taken years to decide that. And recently, the Supreme Court refused to hear a decision by the Ninth Circuit here in the West Coast that said that these cases can be heard in state court. And so we believe now we are able to move forward in state court without any of those delay tactics in federal court. But that effort by fossil fuel companies to move these cases into federal court instead of state court has set us back years. And that has been one of the difficulties. But now that that is behind us, we believe we can move forward, get to the substance, get to the merits, get to a decision, and ultimately get to accountability and change and funding of the abatement fund to address climate change deception.
Thank you. The next one is from Mindy on Facebook. Given the state of the judiciary, how can we trust that any changes made in the lower courts won't just eventually be overturned?
Well, one important part of our case is we're in state court. We're in San Francisco Superior Court. It will not end up in the U.S. Supreme Court, and it'll move through the state court system. And we are happy with the pathway that we have to bring accountability and final resolution through the court system to these fossil fuel companies. And we seek to do that efficiently, expeditiously, and get to an outcome as soon as possible because we can't waste any time.
So this next question is actually, I think, a question for both of you, Jane and Attorney General. This is from Brown on Facebook. I've been an activist since I was in high school. I'm in my 50s now, and I hate to say it, but I'm just so exhausted. What keeps both of you going these days?
Go ahead,
I'd like
Jane.
our guests to take that first.
You want me to take it first?
Yeah.
You know, the story I just shared about my daughter, my children, all children, the next generation. We always want to pass on to the next generation a world, a state, a set of conditions that are better than what we had. I believe that's our duty, our responsibility, certainly our goal and our aspiration. And we're on the verge of not doing that when it comes to climate change. And I have sought out and have had the honor and privilege of serving in important roles in public office because I want to be part of the solution. And so and part of it is my own disposition. I am a hopeless optimistic. I'm forever optimistic about the possibilities that we as human beings can create if we work together. We have faced huge challenges in the past, civil wars and world wars and global pandemics. And there is nothing we can't do if we come together, put our political will behind an action and do it together. We can do this. I believe we can. I know we can. It will take collective action, which is tough, collective action across jurisdictions, across state lines and national lines, as global actors across the world need to act. But we can. And I believe we can. And I want to do my part. And I don't want to tell my children or their grandchildren or the next generation that we failed to try or that we failed to achieve what we set out to do. We can do it, and I'm going to make sure I do my very best to get the outcomes that the next generation deserves and that our current generation deserves.
Thank you for that. And Brown, I believe your name is, the person who asked the question. I understand why you're tired. I'm tired. It's tiring and it's discouraging, and it's not so difficult to give way to hopelessness. But what I suggest is that you get a lot of sleep, pay attention to your sleep. We all activists have to look out for ourselves and our health. We do not want to burn out. But then the next thing is, and I know this in my heart and in my bones, the antidote to despair is action. So I would suggest, after you get a lot of sleep and rest, is that you join with other people who are fighting against the climate crisis. Don't be alone, be with others in community, in an organization that is fighting in a strategic way. And that camaraderie with like-minded people who share your values always does a lot to raise us up and give us renewed energy. But don't feel bad about being tired, but do something about it because we need you.
Agree, and I'll add to that because that's such an important point. It's often been said, don't agonize, organize, and organize with others who are fighting. And when we have victories, celebrate them. It's important to take a moment to, instead of moving on and blowing past the victory to the next fight, celebrating things like SB 253, Scott Wiener's bill that requires large U.S. corporations to do business in California, to disclose their emissions, or SB 261, the Stern bill, requiring large U.S. corporations that do business in California to disclose climate-related financial risks. Those are important. Those are game changers. They move the ball forward. So it's a long road, but we should also recognize the progress that we're making, and hopefully that will inspire us and reinvigorate us and energize us for the work ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for all your questions. They were really good. I appreciate it very much. And thank you so much, Attorney General Bonta. I'm so honored that you've joined us. and given us a really fascinating window into this crucial case. Keep up the good work. Stay strong. Stay safe.
Thank you, Jane. I'm so honored to have joined you today. Thank you for allowing me to talk about our case, and thank you for all the great work you continue to do. We'll always do our part at the California DOJ to be by your side and fight the fight too.
Thank you.
Yep.
And before we close, I want to shine a spotlight on another legal challenge, Juliana versus the United States, which is a flagship case brought by young people asserting that climate change is violating their constitutional rights. Listen to this youth plaintiff, Isaac Vergun, who, by the way, was 13 years old when the case was filed in 2015. He's explaining a little more what this lawsuit is about, why it's important, and how you can support. Give a listen.
Hi, my name is Isaac Vergun, and I'm one of the 21 youth plaintiffs in the Juliana versus United States court case. What is Juliana versus United States? Well, Juliana versus the United States is a youth-led constitutional climate lawsuit filed back in 2015 by me and 20 other young Americans against the United States government. My fellow plaintiffs and I assert that the federal government's actions that actively cause and worsen climate change violate our constitutional rights to life, liberty, property, and equal protection of the laws, as well as harm of our essential public trust resources. Much like Brown versus Board of Education, where young people argue that segregation in public school systems was unconstitutional, our case also seeks a declaratory judgment from the court that our nation's fossil fuel-based energy system is unconstitutional. Getting this kind of judicial declaration would mean that all future federal climate and energy legislation and executive actions, regardless of political majority or party, would need to be protected. We need to protect the constitutional rights of young people. The court would declare that our rights are being violated and that our government needs to change their actions that violate our rights. And what does this case mean to youth everywhere? This case is extremely important for young people everywhere. Where, even though there's only 20 of us on this case who are plaintiffs, but if we are successful, our victory will trickle down to the rights of young people and future generations across the globe. Youth are the ones who will suffer the most due to climate change, and Juliana versus the United States is the most important constitutional climate case in the world because it's holding the United States federal government most responsible for climate change and holding them accountable for their fair share of emissions. We filed our case back in 2015, as I said, but despite securing a historic ruling back in 2016 that gave us the green light for trial, we have been fighting for over 8 years to have our day in court. Delayed again and again by the U.S. Department of Justice's tactics to try to impede or dismiss our case. Most recently, on June 1st, the judge in our case granted our motion to amend our complaint, an action which once again put our case back on track to trial, where we could present the evidence of our government's conduct that causes the climate crisis in open court. However, the U.S. Department of Justice continues to aggressively file motions to try and delay or dismiss our case. They're continuing to use the same strategies as Trump's Department of Justice to close the courthouse doors on us, instead of fulfilling the Biden administration's promises to work with youth for climate justice. You can help us right away and right this wrong by contacting the United States Department of Justice and Attorney General Garland right now. Calling, emailing, tweeting them, anything. Reach out to them and urge them to end their opposition to our case proceeding to trial. Visit bit.ly/youthvgovaction to take action today. That's bit.ly, bit.ly/youthvgovaction to take action. You can also contact your legislators and urge them to co-sponsor the Congressional Children's Fundamental Rights and Climate Recovery Resolution that recognizes that the climate crisis disproportionately affects youth and their health, economic opportunity, and fundamental rights. Stay up to date on our case, including breaking news and urgent calls to action, by following Our Children's Trust on social media and join their online mailing list at youthvgov.org/join. Thank you.
Wow, well, I'm inspired. How about you? These young people are unstoppable, and they can't do it alone, though. You know, they need us to have their backs. And nothing could be more worthy than supporting these heroic young people for their future. They're fighting for a future. You know the drill, firefighters. To make change, we have to take action. Isaac mentioned several ways you can help. If you didn't already catch the links, you can go to firedrillfridays.com/take-action to get all the information you need. And whatever you're doing at the moment besides driving, and then in which case you have to do it later, please take 1 or 2 minutes to honor the leadership of these young people and take at least one small action in support. We owe them that and a whole lot more. I don't know about you, but this time of year always puts me in a reflective mood. I think a lot about what I've done, what I've learned, and the many things that I'm thankful for. If you'll indulge me, I thought I'd share a few of those, the things that I'm grateful for, and I'm curious to hear yours too. You know, I'm grateful for my children and my grandchildren. They're healthy, they're smart, and they love me. My 2 grandchildren are in college, and I have one that's 4 years old. I'm grateful for Greenpeace, which has given me a home for Fire Drill Fridays. I'm grateful that I have a home that's paid for and good health insurance, among my other privilege. I'm grateful for all of you firefighters across the globe who give me hope and strength to keep fighting for a future that works for all of us. I can't do this alone, and I don't want to. You know, you all are the reason that I know that I'm not alone in this fight. And this is why I keep at it and why I think we're going to win. Okay, so now it's your turn. When you reflect on the year, on our Fire Drill Fridays family and the greater climate justice movement, what are you grateful for? What have you learned? What are you talking about with your friends? And what are you taking with you into the new year? Will you comment? And would you let us know on whatever platform you're watching? Please do it. And as a token of my appreciation, I want to send a couple of year-end thank you notes. I'm going to write a note to several of you for your dedication to this community and for your courage and your presence. We're going to select 2 of you who have left comments to receive a handwritten note from moi. Okay? Please share your thoughts, the comments, and I can't wait to read what you have to say. As we close the chapter on 2023 and look ahead to 2024, I hope to see you back here on the first Friday of the new year, which is January 5th, 11 o'clock Pacific time, 2 o'clock Eastern time. It's going to be a very special show where we're going to reveal our plans for 2024. Fire Drill Fridays is going to be quite different next year, and we really want you to know why and what we're planning to do. So please tune in to Fire Drill Fridays on January 5th. I hope and pray that you and your families have a wonderful holiday season. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the new year.